Welcome, everybody. It's your boy, the Presiding Donor, and we're doing another episode of VSW. Tonight, we have a very, very special one. For the first time ever, we have a referee on the show. That's right, the one and only Ken Baskin. Welcome.
Hey, thank you, man. Appreciate you having me.
I got one question I'm going to ask right off the bat really fast. You're not related to that crazy bitch Carol, are you?
Nope, not related.
Okay, cool. Okay, welcome aboard. You are the first referee on, and most of the time, you think wrestling, you think wrestlers, right? Well, that's the action. But there is the third man part of it, and that's the referee.
Appreciate that. We are in there. We are with them. They are the stars, though. I want to make that clear, but I enjoy being in there with them.
So you're not one of those kind of refs that try to steal it. I've seen them come out and try to steal shine, but you're not one of them guys.
It's not me. I had a little bit of a past, right, where I tried to make myself the show, but I'm not. These guys are the show.
Yeah, I mean, within reason, but sometimes it's like obnoxious. You'll see it not even on like the indies, even on like major scenes. You'll see it. It's kind of obnoxious where like the ref like this almost into a triple threat match. It's like no. A good referee, I feel, is silent but efficient. He's in there to drive the story along, tell it. He can have good facial expressions. He's gonna be surprised. You don't know what's going on, but your job is also to officiate. You know what I'm saying? You're there to call it. You're there to keep everybody safe. You're there to do your job.
That's exactly right.
Now let me ask you, how long you been a ref for?
Well, I think about 10 years. I started with actually one of the guests you just had, Primer. He ran his last show, Primer Inc. Presents. That was my very first show. I worked for IWE right after that, when Eric Johnson owned it. Okay. And then John Breyer took over. I did that, a couple shows, and then, COVID. COVID always rears its ugly head in the wrestling stories.
All of us up this East Coast has just been kind of with the COVID. I know other parts of the country got to operate, but up here was just shut down. So you said about maybe 10 years, and then with the COVID break and so forth. Now, is that what you wanted to do when getting into the industry? You wanted to be a ref, or did you start out as a wrestler, wanted to get in that route?
So I kind of started late. I was a fan at IWE, actually, is how really I met everybody and met Primer. And I really didn't want to wrestle, but I did wrestle in high school. So I wanted to be a part of it. I knew that. And that's what got me in there, really, was meeting Eric Johnson, John Primer, and that being a fan at those IWE shows back in the day. That's what got me into it.
And you kind of just went from there. And like you said, with the late start, it is hard. I mean, I'm an older person. I tried getting into it when I was younger. At that point, they really weren't looking for people of my stature. Wrestling's changed over the last 20 years. It's okay to be 5'8" in wrestling now, but back in 2000, nobody really literally, Killer Kowalski was like, no, you're too small. But coming now around back again, in 2017, I started getting back into the scene. I started to, podcasting, covering things. And I've done seminars, I've done training camps. It's hard. It is hard on the body, on the mind, on the time, on everything at this age to try to give it your all. Is it undoable? No. And if you want to try it, I commend anybody that does. There's some great people that have had some late starts. That are doing really good on the indie scene right now. Like for one instance, I'll give you Dylan Nix, amazing talent, started a little bit later, but really just caught up and kicks ass up. And there's others, and there's people that are still out there. But I mean, it's not for everybody. Like I said, for me, it came down to a time issue. I don't have the 3 or 4 days to guarantee that I can go to training. And if I'm not going to go to training, I'm not going to have this. It's not worth it. But like you said, there's other paths, there's other options in wrestling. There's commentary, there's people like me that even podcast and interview. There's people that sell tickets, and then of course it's, again, the referees. And me being a wrestling fan for ever since I was a little kid, refs have always kind of played a role because I remember, growing up and seeing the whole double Earl thing, when Earl's brother came out, they played that gimmick and they had the evil Earl and I remember, getting special guest referees and it being a big deal and a lot even in refereeing has changed. Now we have female refs, we have a whole different, things are happening in wrestling that has progressed in such a level. But the ref game, it's its own thing. And I've seen people try to like get into it or try to do it, and it's not as easy as it thinks because it's very fast paced. If I'm correct, like there's a lot going on that you have to be aware of.
Agreed. There is a lot. And I think when I first got into it, I thought it'd be a step easier, but keeping up with these guys, you got to be on top of everything. And a lot of the guys that work up here, there's some legends of the indie scene that work up here. To keep up with them, that's hard enough for me, let alone trying to wrestle these guys. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, and when you got a very fast-paced match, and you're the ref, your eyes got to be, here, there. Not to mention what's going on outside the ring. Not to mention the, what interference is. You got to be in 20 places at once. It's not easy being a ref.
Agreed. No, it's not. But I really enjoy it. I work with some of the best guys. And this show for Maine Premier Wrestling, there's some guys on here that I've wanted to work for. There's a lot of guys I've already worked matches for. But when you're working legends like Alexander Lee, I mean, he's a legend up here. Primer's a legend up here. They built Maine Wrestling. They started Maine Wrestling. Neil Day, the promoter, helped start it. And I think that's what I'm most excited for. I'm excited for Tatanka. I mean, who wouldn't be excited to ref that match? But I'm also just as excited for the local guys that built it for us to be a part of.
Yeah, I mean, and that's great. And to have even, to feel that excitement of repping their match. I mean, and I guess that's where it comes in. I was gonna ask is, I've interviewed wrestlers where they're like, I've been, this has been my proudest match, or I've had, a really, this has been an honor to work against this person. But as a rep, is it that same honor to work for these guys, to be officiating these matches? It's that big deal, right?
Yeah, you're exactly right. My favorite match is KTB versus Evander James. I did that for Pro Wrestling Takeover. I was their head official for, while they ran. I mean, I'm telling you, what a great match. I've worked a lot. I got to work Mike Orlando quite a few times. I got to work. Who's the guy that was a writer for WWE and got fired, and then did an indie run?
I think there's a few of them, right? Wasn't Vince Russo though,
he wrestled for Impact. I mean, I got to work some Jimmy Jacobs. I mean,
Jimmy Jacobs, yeah, he was on my show not too long ago, and he's another one, a brain in this industry. But yeah, he's a great guy. So you got to work one of those matches. So you get around, and that's the thing. Seeing you're in Maine, so I mean, and you've been in Maine for a while. If you think back in the scene 10 years ago, I mean, you had a young MJF running around. You had these guys that are now on a much bigger platform running in the backyards, at the small VSW halls. You had that. I'm a big fan myself of Limitless Wrestling. And then it got me into following more of Maine wrestling, and it got me to really, kind of explore the scene. Being from Mass, I can only get out so far. I will say that going 6 to 7 hours sometimes kind of a habit, but I've been 6 to 7 hours into Maine, and it's been worth it too. So the wrestling out there is phenomenal. I think it's one of the pinnacle points of New England. We have a lot of great stuff here in Mass, a lot of great stuff in Rhode Island, in Connecticut, and so forth, but Maine has its own blend and its own things, and like you said, when you start mentioning names like Alexander Lee, he's just a pinnacle person of that state. I mean, even like they're not together anymore, but MSP. I mean, just that name alone, that strikes a lot of in the state of Maine. That strikes with a lot of wrestling fans.
I saw MSP the first time I was on a show with them. They were the Fog. They had masks, right? And the first show I ever worked is when they unmasked.
Really, that's awesome.
For IWE.
And it's funny because I didn't first see them until I actually first saw them in Dedham, which is far from Maine. They were in another promotion, but they have already made it down. That's actually where I first saw Alexander Lee as well, was NCW, and then I kind of followed breadcrumbs back and forth. And that's what I do, I go, oh, that's what I did. Now it's a little bit easier because I know a lot more. But back then I would go to these shows, I would see a few guys. And the ones that I would follow interest in, I would start to, start doing research and say, hey, where have they been? And start, going back, looking. YouTube is a great asset. There's a lot of, footage out there. So you can start Googling things and YouTube videos are popping up. And I was seeing where these guys and girls were coming from. And it was just amazing just watching the progression that takes place. And Maine is no different. You have still, so much, like I said, talent, not just people like MJF, but you got these homegrown talent that live out there, like Fandango, Dirty Dango, he's out from Maine. Ace Romero, he's from Maine. He's been on Impact. He's been on AEW. He's been in Germany. He's been all over the place. These are great superstars that are coming from this state. They're training out there. They're wrestling out there. They're helping out there. They're putting on shows out there. It's amazing. Because again, a lot of people from other parts, I don't think, associate wrestling with Maine.
I agree. And I think Eric Johnson deserves a lot of shout outs for when we're talking about something like this. He trained a lot of the guys you named, right? Or helped train them or gave them a shot at IBW at IWE. I mean, Anthony Green, a lot of his shows. I was a fan then. I wasn't a ref, but Anthony Green did a lot of IWE shows back then, and Eric gave him a spot, right? Ace Romero.
Funny thing about AG is he started as a ref.
Yes, he did. That's right. Yep.
Down at that Dedham promotion, NCW. But he's another prime example of someone that's just I see him synonymous with a lot of places, just New England in general. But I also strike in Maine with him holding those titles and him representing it. He's another asset to this area because he helps wherever he goes. And he's somebody that I've kind of followed for a bit in the industry, and wherever it is, it's just always something magnificent.
He's doing amazing.
Eric Johnson, another one, and he's still out there kicking ass. I saw him recently in a great match with BRG. I mean, it wasn't victorious for him, but he gave it his all, and it was in a steel cage.
Yeah, he's going to be on this show. He's going to be on the next the MAINE Premier Wrestling show. I'm very excited.
So let's talk a little bit about that now. So now, you've been referencing, the pandemic hit. You kind of got back into it after that. I take it slowly, surely. And then MPW is coming along. Very exciting news. A lot of great names, a lot of great heritage, a lot of great things coming back.
I agree. And in a new place, so to speak, right? There hasn't been many shows ran on Indian Island. Not any recent, that's for sure. I'm very excited for this, and I think Neil has the right plan in place and the right people in place. Primer, being the booker, and I'm more than excited to get back to it. This is right situation, right time, I feel like.
Yeah, definitely. And I've seen nothing but professionalism across the board, from the post right down to the people I've talked to, which is impressive because that's not always the case, I will say. Because, when you see a new promotion, sometimes it gets shade. Sometimes people are like, it's that time of the year again, taxes are coming back. People are just running the show to run it. They're booking their friends. They're just putting on a, a mud show. But, I talked to Primer, and that's not the case. There's actually plans beyond this show. I don't know exact dates, but they booked the hall up. It's not a one-shot deal. This is here to stay. It's here to grow. It's here to be part of Maine wrestling. And again, that is the difference. I say, Maine's not known for wrestling because Maine wrestling is very spread out. It's 6 hours here and 3 hours there, and it's not as consecutive. It's not every weekend. There's hundreds of shows running. We're in my area. There's like 5 or 6 shows every weekend. It's crowded. Maine, there's maybe 1 or 2, but they're also spread out very far. So the more wrestling, the better in Maine, I feel, because there's a lot of athletes out there. There's a lot of great athletes out there. And sometimes they don't want to travel all the way to Mass. They don't want to go. New Hampshire's a bust. New Hampshire's very hard to wrestle out of. You need a lot of money. You need to know people. You need to know mafia. I don't know what you got to do to work out there, but it's not easy. So you got to go to Mass. And it's not fair to always have to drive. So to have another local spot for the local talent is great. Even though I know Prime's bringing in people from across the country, there's still going to be some that local talent feel.
Yeah, when you have a place like Limitless Dojo putting out guys like they're putting out, and as quick as they're putting out, it is nice to have a few different companies running. Larry Huntley's always doing his thing, right?
That was great.
Yeah, he one show I've always wanted to do was a Geno show. I've heard Geno shows for Larry Huntley are the thing to do. Love to do that someday. But when you have guys when you have guys like him and Randy Carver, Let's Wrestle, Limitless, it is nice to add something to that. You've also got Crown of Maine running strong up north. And I do think you're right. It gives these dojo kids a lot of places to go. I don't want to travel as much anymore. I did that a little bit when Pro Wrestling Takeover was a thing, and I went to New York and worked for Project Brewington, and did one of his shows. But I just want to stay local now, so it's perfect situation for me. But these dojo kids, we're now up to what, 4, 5, 6 places they can work and not leave the state.
And that's great. And, they got great trainers out there. I've talked to a lot of them, and a lot of them, are just, they're Maine people. They're all Maine people. But it is that. And it's good to have those options. I was talking to somebody the other day, and it's like, you get to a certain age, you get to a certain level of wrestling, where you kind of want to end up. It might not be the bright lights and big stars you earlier on thought it would be, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You're being more realistic, or you change your goals. But you start to slow it back. You might not want to travel more. You might start a family. Who the hell knows what's happened in 10 years? It changed, but things do change. So it's great to have those options where the young guns, they can still work their 5 or 6 shows in Maine and still go to Mass and work another 5, 6 shows. I've seen people work Herman one day and then, Jersey the next. That's a hell of a drive. It was a hell of a drive for both of us. But it happens, and if you want it, you can get it. If you don't want it, you don't have to. It's still there locally, and I like to see that. Recently, Adam Booker opened up another wrestling promotion out there as well. And I was happy to see that too, because that was a little bit closer for me. A little bit closer for me. And, sometimes, like I said, I like to go to Maine Wrestling, but I don't like to drive the 3.5 hours. I like, Yarmouth is decent. Anywhere under Yarmouth is great, but I've been out to Fairfield, or it's Fairfield, I don't know. Brewer, Brewster. We went to Brewer one time to a convention, then went to Brewster for a show. It's a long night, especially after the show, coming home. We're used to a lot of bright lights in Mass. There was like no street lights for miles. It was wild. But what I always make a trip. I stop at dispensaries. Your prices are much better. I see people. I make a day of it. Sometimes I even like to stay a weekend. I'll go out to shows and rent a hotel with my wife, bring the kids. But yeah, I'm really excited for this because I did hear about the local talent that's going to be there. Some of the legends that are going to be there that are in this industry already established, and then again, bringing in some of these young gun kids, bringing in people from other territory states and such. And then, of course, Tatanka.
Yeah, that's right. Tatanka, Nakoma Tala. I mean, having 2 real Native Americans on the show on Indian Island. I think that is huge. I'm so happy to be a part of that. Primer, Alexander Lee, Dylan Nix. I mean, I'm gonna forget people that are gonna give me crap later, but the show's loaded if you look at main talent and what they're bringing in. And then the next show, I mean, Chris Masters. I mean, who can't be excited for that? And as a ref, as a senior ref, couldn't be more excited.
Exactly. I mean, you're gonna get a lot of these high profile matches, which is nice, and you get to work again with some of this talent that you've had some breaks from due to pandemic, and again you get to work with some new talent too, which is always something new because you learn something new.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And there's some kids on here that I think, like the days when we saw Ace Romero at IWE and the days that we saw Anthony Green there, the days that we saw Sasha Banks, and this is that crop, I think. This is that crop that we're going to see in AEW, in WWE, at least a few of them.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, you already seen people like, I mean, even like people like Alex Price back there making national waves, international waves. Even people like Perry Von Vicious and Rip, they just came back from Japan.
Japan.
And Perry Von Vicious, the human monster truck, will be at the show.
Main event.
He's huge. He's a huge dude. I remember when he used to be like a little guy wearing a money suit. Now he's like, he really is. He's transformed. But that's a transformation I love to see on the indie scene. And you don't get to really see it on the mainstream because a lot of it gets behind closed doors. Oh, it's back to the PC Center. They go to the PC Center for 6 months, they come back and they're different. In the indie scene, it's not really like that. You see the slow transformation. You see the growth. You see everything they learn new. You see them make mistakes, but then you see them correct it, and then you see them really grow. And you can only see that honestly on the indie scene.
Look at Blade Bandit, who he's facing. Blade Bandit has made a transformation. The guy's ripped. My first show was Blade Bandit versus Viper the Ninja on Primer Inc. Presents. Blade, I mean, you couldn't ask for a better guy to work with. He guided me the whole match right, my very first match. But him in the main with Perry, I mean, are you kidding? That guy is ripped now. He's focused on wrestling, and it's amazing to see.
And I mean, that's the thing. It is amazing to see because it's not easy to transform, but some of these guys can do it really, really fast.
Yep, I agree. And Blade
it just goes to show, I think, the determination that people have for this industry now.
Yeah, I agree. Blade's put the work in, and along with a lot of the guys, right? But I think that main event is going to be a banger.
It is, another person I really like to come out of Maine is the Spitfire there, Jessie Nolan. I find her magnificent to watch wrestle. There still isn't an equal ratio, I feel, of female to male wrestlers. So when you see the females wrestle, there's really only a few. So, you got your Ava Everett's and stuff. And I saw, her debut down in Mass. And then I saw, her wrestle up in Maine. She's phenomenal.
Yep, she's great. Nicole Matala, I mean, she's doing the work for sure. Jessie Nolan's doing the work, working for many companies. There is a list of them now. It's definitely not the numbers, like the men, but I think it's going to get there. And
it is. It's growing. And a lot of promotions are starting to incorporate intergender a little bit more, which I don't find necessarily wrong. I think intergender done right is a wonderful thing. I've seen some of the greatest matches done right. If it's done wrong, it's going to turn out like shit and you're going to get criticized. But if you have good guys and girls that can put on these matches, it's phenomenal.
Agree. Yeah.
I've seen Chris Statlander and like OC and AG and Ava Everett and all these guys and girls put on fantastic matches against each other. It's just like, okay, this can happen. I mean, like I said, I've seen bad matches too, but you've seen a lot more of that. And with that comes again, more women on the card, more women getting title shots, more women's titles. I've seen a flux in the last few years of women's titles being announced. And it's great to see. It just shows the progression in wrestling and that we're, catching up with the same as, mainstream, if not even more. I feel like there's actually more opportunity in the indie scene than there is actually mainstream for inclusivity and letting everybody, be inclusive and part of wrestling.
Yep, I definitely agree. Kennedy Copeland's been doing this a while. She's been up in this area quite a while. I worked with Allie Rex quite a bit. She was great. They're there, right? And I think they're the ones that the fans that are girls see and want to do it, right? They're the ones that are going to motivate the next crop.
Definitely, definitely. And then you still got legends too. I mean, once in a while you'll get Lufisto coming down from Canada, and she brings, even more prestige to the sport as a female wrestler. She's like in the Hall of Fame. She comes down. I've seen her in Maine wrestling, and I've seen other talent come from Canada wrestling Maine. They won't come to Mass, but they'll wrestle in Maine, and it's great to see that because again, Maine has another. Canada has another very kind of traditional wrestling sense, right? You had the Hart family out there. You had other families out there. Kind of got lost over the years as WWE kind of monopolized everything.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, everything's growing in Maine. I think it's not just women's wrestling. I think we're growing, and I think Maine Premier Wrestling just adds to what Randy has been doing for years, what Larry's been doing for years. We're just adding to that. Yes, some promotions come and go, and I've worked for a couple of them, but what those guys, Eric Johnson, built, I think Maine Premier Wrestling is definitely going to carry the torch, keep her going.
And you got wrestlers that are, that want to see the torch going to, and that's a different thing. When you got wrestlers that are invested, not just, financially, but they're invested, in their heart because it's something that they care about. It's something that, it's their heritage, it's their history. Maybe they worked it back in the day. Maybe it's something that they're really proud of, but whatever it is, it's bound to them. So, you're going to see these guys and girls go out there and really push for it. And I think that's, the difference in a great promotion is when you see, people that really care about the product itself and making sure that the name stays proud. They don't want to bring bad, they don't want to bring shade to it, they don't want to bring hate to it, they want to keep it, clean because they know it's going to be there. It's going to be, part of the now permanent landscape of Maine wrestling. Like you said, it's going to be up there with Nawa and Limitless, and you can go Let's Wrestle and all these other shows. It's going to be part of it. Now we're going to be going, to Maine Premier Wrestling on, whatever night. It's going to be, another stopping point for wrestlers to get to, go to, grow out of, show out of. Like I tell people all the time, this is a great age to be a wrestler because everybody got their phones and cameras, and you don't know who's going to see the footage. Right? I've gotten some videos that have gotten 10 million views, 11 million views. You never know who's watched it. You never know whose feed you're going to show up in. You show up in some, high-end booker's feed and they see a video that's taken off. All of a sudden, you're going to get a phone call. You could. You never know. It's a great age to get noticed. And there's many ways to do it through social media, through fans, through yourself, self-promotion. It's a great time.
Yeah, definitely. The internet's a big thing, right? We didn't have that when we were kids, and they've got that now to get seen quickly. When you were talking, I was thinking, how I think Ace Romero got seen was when he pounced the dude out of the ring. You go on ESPN, and then, all it takes is one little clip to go viral now. That's massive.
It is, I got a video of him. It took off. It got like 11 million views, and he gets power bombed. He actually gets power bombed.
Yep.
And Greenleaf like hops about 3 feet above the air when he goes down. He just bounced Greenleaf up like a freaking hot air balloon. And the video took off, and everybody loves AC. He got a lot of credit. Another video that actually took off was from the Limitless show as well, and that was with JD Drake. He's been out there a few times. He made it on AEW as well, but he's been out to Maine quite a few times as well. And it is. You don't know who's going to watch these films. You don't know what's going to happen. They see something that looks exciting. They say, yo, I want this for my show. They're going to reach out to you. And it's great. That's the opportunities I think people have been waiting for. You know, before it was like, yeah, magazines, we got to write into them. We got to send these tapes. We got to send VHS tapes. You know, now it's a little bit easier. And, you know, like I said, you might not be a main star in the show, but the show is you're part of the show. So, you know, how you do things reflects on how good a match is. If you're a shitty ref, the main event's going to be garbage, regardless of how good they doing. I've been in a match one time, and I won't, you know, not for nothing. I mean, sometimes you work shows like you said, or you might do shows that are just one-ups, or sometimes they're even almost backyard shows. And I got into it. I won't lie. I wanted to play around and see what was out there, and I was working with some people, and we did a show, and we didn't have a ref. So somebody's, you know, I don't even know who, but somebody's girlfriend jumped in, and I ended up having the match, and my match ended up getting botched. It was only supposed to be about 20 seconds. I was supposed to then get choked. And my partner was supposed to come out and save me. Didn't happen. My partner never came out. So me and the kid had to finish the match, and we're going. And I'm not really a wrestler, I'll be honest. I've only done, like I said, some, you know, minor trainings here and there. I've learned a few things. I've learned how to bump, for instance, and shit like that. But I don't know how to do 90% of the shit. So we're out there just fucking around, and I'm like, what's this dude coming? Like, you know, what's going on here? I'm like, I only know a few things, so like, I put the kid in the full Nelson, and you know, the ref's supposed to come over to, you know, see if I'm gonna submit, or he's gonna submit. She starts tapping, 1, 2, 3, winner, winner. I'm like, what did I win? I haven't pinned him. He hasn't submitted. And I was really confused, I'll be honest. But like I said, the ref got to, you know, play the role, and it's important part.
And the communication has to be there, right? You know, I've had a couple matches that didn't go wonderfully, right? At PWT, I had one that didn't end quite the way I thought it was going to end, but you just got to be ready, and you got to trust the guys that you're in the ring with. And I definitely trust, you know, the guys that I've been in the ring with. There's not one guy that I'm not going to say that I didn't have a great match with or anything like that.
Now let me ask you a question. Have you ever like worked a match with a guy, and like, because like you said, you started as a fan, right? So you had favorites back then. Have you ever worked a match with a guy and be like, yeah, I just want to screw this other guy and just give this guy the victory? Have you ever gotten in that position?
Only one time. Only one time. We're throwing kayfabe out, bro. One time. VCW, the first time I worked Alexander Lee. I don't even remember who he was going up against, but I do remember because I met him later than I met Primer and the other guys. And I remember thinking, and I remember telling him, like, you know, I'm pumped to be doing your match. And I don't remember who the other guy was, but he was going to win either way.
But I mean, I guess that's the power of a ref. You know, and I only mention it because, you know, WWE drops their game every year. They just dropped their 2K24. I'm a gamer. And this year they're allowing you to be a ref.
Yeah.
And they tell you right in the beginning that you don't have to be fair, that you can be impartial, that you could like fast count and stuff, that you could like screw somebody over. So like it made me think, I'm like,
I've only gone through one time in my career where I wasn't happy with the situation I was in. I may have done some heel stuff, but at this point in my career, I call it down the middle. There's no more of that. I've been in it too long. These guys put so much work in. I've got to call it down the middle. Who wins, wins.
And just go with whatever, yeah. And I mean, I get that, like I said, but you know, it's always time, especially when you hear things like the Montreal screw job, and you're like, you know, and you're wondering how many times that's actually happened on the indie scene, but people just won't flip out. You know what I'm saying? You won't see it till after the fact. But we'll never know.
You should interview Black Rose, okay, and ask him how he feels about Ref Ken Baskin. He might tell you the story.
I'll have to reach out on that one. I really will. But so what are we about? A week away or so? Maybe what? A week and 3 days away from MPW?
March 16th, Indian Island, the old bingo hall. I think it's 16 Webnacki Way. We're gonna do a 4:30 VIP, a 5:30 doors open. Ring the bell at 6. Let's go.
Can't wait. I heard you can get your tickets at Eventbrite. Very easy. Just type in MPW. Should pop right up.
Yep, and go on their Facebook page. There's plenty of ways to get it. Also, local people can buy it right on the island, but buy tickets. But Eventbrite's got it too.
Yeah, it would be. If I'm gonna go out there now, I might as well just stay till the show.
$10, $10, man. That's all. $10. General admissions, all that's left. We sold the VIPs. I'm pumped about that.
Yeah, I heard Johnny told me you guys sold the VIP, but he did say Tatanka will be signing at intermission. So I don't know for how long, but I mean, I know there's people out there that love to get their commemorable sign. I have a few figures myself that I wouldn't mind. A couple Legends figures. Actually, a few. I got ones way back. Actually, I might even actually have a Hasbro somewhere from my childhood. But Tonka was one of my favorites. In 92, 93, for me, like wrestling was, a lot going on. For me, I like that era. A lot of people don't like the WrestleMania 9-10 era, but I think it was a lot of fun. And I think it was fun because it was supposed to be. It wasn't supposed to be taken as serious as wrestling is today. And they made it that way so people kind of would be like joking about it, because later when it got kind of more serious and adult orientated, it kind of got into a split where people would be like, "Ah, that shit's fake, you're a loser. Oh, that shit's cool, it's funny." But back then when we were little kids, it was just supposed to be funny and everybody was like, "Ah, it's funny." So whether they thought it was fake or not, nobody was talking. It was just funny. And Tatanka was one of those characters, and I remember very clearly WrestleMania 9. He opened the show with Shawn Michaels, and it was the first time we see Luna Vachon. Just told a great story. I remember the Survivor Series prior. It was him and Rick Martel. They had a story going. Great story. And then I remember him and DiBiase and Lex Luger and that whole sellout situation. That was just great storytelling. And he'll still talk about it today, which is the amazing thing about Tatanka is his memory is still sharp. Like a lot of wrestlers I've talked, they'll be like, they'll kind of go with your story, but they won't know the exact thing. Tatanka knows the story better because he was there and he still remembers it.
Yeah, I've been following him for a while. He's focusing on his son's wrestling, which is really cool. If you guys follow him, you see him post every day about his sons and what they're doing in amateur wrestling. And I was an amateur wrestler in high school. That's a very awesome part of my life. So it's pretty cool to see him following them and feeling like he's pushing them towards some way, right? And that they want to be part of what their dad did, maybe.
It could be. I mean, to be honest, I don't think there's a high enough representation of Native American in pro wrestling like there used to be. There used to be a lot more. And that's just for whatever reason. But, Tatanka was one of them, like you said, and to have him and Natola on actual grounds, that's going to be a proud moment for everybody there. And I think not just for them, but for the people in attendance, it's going to be something really special put together on this show.
Yeah, definitely. And Nicole Matala being part of it too, right? That just adds to that. I think
that's what I'm saying. Like I said, right now there's only a few and to get to, and she's another one. She's been traveling up and down, wrestling all over, and it's great to see because every time they get out of the area, or get out of the territory, they come back learning something new.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think that's what's made the show even more accepted over there, right? Because like we talked about early, you're going to have the haters, and we've had a few, right, that are like, I can't believe they're allowing wrestling on Indian Island with Indians, but I'm telling you, they're real. This is their heritage. They're more pumped than the rest of us.
Yeah, it's not going to be an issue of like, you're using them for bait or whatever, they could
Exactly.
easily say no. Tatanka could easily be like, nah, I'm not accepting this book and I don't believe in that. And the same thing when they're told, they both can say that to you and be like, oh. But that's not the case. Like you said, everybody's been receptive and pumped for it. Johnny said the same thing. Everybody's amped. Tatanka's amped for this show. And seeing that is getting everybody else in, especially when you see, a former WWE superstar. Not to mention, like I said, that's not how indie. When we were talking a little bit about indie shows, and when I used to go to indie shows as a kid, it was totally different. You would have, only to look forward to would be those one-ups, basically. Back in my day, it would be like Honky Tonk Man and stuff that would be at the show. And that's who you would really look forward to. Everybody else didn't really have a role. They were all just jobbers. They were all just nobodies. But when I went back into the indie scene in 17, everybody had a place. Everybody had a name. There was no need for the one-up. There was no need for any superstar. Everybody was already good. Everybody was already at that level. And now when you have it with the show and then you bring in someone like that, it's just amazing. It's going to be just like I said. I can't wait. I can't talk about it enough because I'm excited for a new promotion. I'm one of those people that are like, once you get to talk, if it's run right, the more the merrier, honestly.
I agree. The ticket sales are looking really good for this too. I'm just as excited as you are. It's been a while since I've been in the ring. It's at least been a couple years, and this feels like it's the right time to get back in there and with the right people.
And then you being named senior rep, basically you're in charge. There will be one rep underneath you, though. How do you feel about that?
That's fine. That's fine. I've never worked with Mo. I'm excited to work with him. He's worked up north quite a bit. Most of my work is Central Maine. I did a lot of Southern Maine with Pro Wrestling Takeover. I'm excited to always work with a rep and throw my knowledge on him and learn from other people and do my thing. It's been a while, but I'm ready to get back into it.
Would you say that the refs have like a brotherhood like the wrestlers? Like the
Yeah,
family?
you said brotherhood, and I immediately thought Joey Gleeks. He was my guy. That was the guy that trained me, basically, taught me a lot of Pro Wrestling Takeover, a lot of IWE. I miss that guy. I'm no Limitless fans miss Joey. That was my brother, and so yes, we are a brotherhood.
Yeah, that was a tough one for a lot of people. It affected a lot, and and I've heard a lot of similar things. They were the ones that it kind of was their dude. That was their person. But yeah, it's good to see, like I said, because the refs kind of often get a little bit forgotten in the storyline, and as they're supposed to, because they're not really supposed to be there. They're the hidden character. But you forget about them, and that's what you don't want to do. You do want to remember the good refs, because the good refs is that third person putting on the great match. And I thank you with those words, and I do thank you for coming on. It's been a pleasure, honestly. And I can't wait to see you in action at MPW.
Hey, thanks, man, for having me on my first podcast. Appreciate it. I hope I did MPW proud. March 16th. Get your tickets. General admissions, all that's left, but come see us.
Thank you very much, Ken Baskin. Thank you, and we will also post that link to that all the ticket info underneath. As always, folks, thank you for watching and support indie wrestling. Versace Stoner out.